Have you ever stopped to think what a brilliant scientist from centuries ago and, one of the most famous landmarks in the entire world could possibly have in common? Well, the answer is actually a single, totally invisible point. It's the secret to balance that keeps giants from falling. Let's dig in.
Our story kicks off right here. I want you to picture it. Pisa, Italy, way back in 1589. There's this young, incredibly bright mind, and he's writing about a concept that will quite literally shape our world, the center of gravity. And that man was, of course, Galileo Galilei.
But Galileo wasn't the first to think about this, not by a long shot. He was actually standing on the shoulders of giants, inspired by Archimedes, who was talking about this stuff thousands of years earlier. And get this ancient idea is the very same principle we use today to understand why some of the world's most incredible structures are still standing.
So this early work on balance, it really became Galileo's starting point. It's what launched his whole lifelong exploration into gravity and motion. So let's kind of follow in his footsteps and see if we can unlock these secrets for ourselves.
So, what was it? What was it about this one idea that just so totally captivated minds like Archimedes and Galileo? I mean, why did they spend so much time thinking about this single specific point? What was the big deal?
Well, to really get what they discovered, we actually need to start with a concept that's a close relative but just a little bit different. So before we can talk about the center of gravity, we first need to get a handle on the center of mass.
All right, let's dive into our first key concept. We're about to find that one special, magical point where everything seems to just perfectly balance. Okay, so what is the center of mass? It's this unique point in any object where all of its mass is perfectly balanced. And what's really amazing about it is that if you could somehow push on that exact point, the entire object would just move in a perfectly straight line. No tilting, no wobbling, nothing. Just straight.
Think about it like this. Imagine you've got a long stick, right? And there's a heavy weight on one end and a light one on the other. If you try to pick it up right from the middle, what happens? Of course, the heavy side immediately drops. You've pushed on the wrong spot. It's totally unbalanced.
But if you can find that one perfect spot, the center of mass, you could lift the entire system with just one finger, and it would stay perfectly level. It's as if the entire mass of that whole object has been shrunk down and concentrated into that single stable point.
Okay, so I think we've got the center of mass down. Now let's bring in the big one, the force that really shapes our world, gravity. This is where things get even more interesting, because this is where weight finally enters the equation.
So we've got these two terms, and they sound super similar, right? On one hand, you have the center of mass, which is all about how an object's mass is spread out. But on the other hand, you've got the center of gravity, which is all about how its weight is distributed. They're related, for sure, but they're not exactly identical.
The center of gravity, well, it's the average location of an object's weight. You can think of it as the single point where the force of gravity seems to be pulling down on the entire object all at once. It's the balance point, but specifically in relation to the pull of gravity.
Now you're probably thinking, okay, this is getting a little confusing. What's the real difference here? So let's clear that up right now. And I'll also explain why for pretty much all everyday purposes, you don't actually have to worry about it.
Okay, so the crucial difference is this. The center of mass is a property of the object itself. It doesn't care if you're on Earth or the moon or floating in deep space. It just is. The center of gravity, though, absolutely depends on a gravitational field. It only even exists because gravity is pulling on the object.
And here's the key takeaway, the thing you really need to remember. As long as you are on or near the Earth's surface, the gravitational field is pretty much uniform. And that means the center of mass and the center of gravity are, for all practical purposes, in the exact same spot. This is why you and I can use the terms interchangeably and not get into any trouble.
And this brings us right back to where we started. Now that we're armed with this knowledge, let's go back to Pisa and see exactly how this invisible point is the unsung hero of one of the world's greatest architectural marvels.
It's really a simple but kind of terrifying three-step problem. So first, the tower's foundation wasn't great, and it began to lean, which caused its center of gravity to shift sideways. Now here's the critical challenge. If that point ever moved beyond the edge of its base, the whole thing would just fall over. So the solution for engineers for hundreds of years has been to make absolutely sure that never happens.
And this number, this just brilliantly illustrates the forces we're talking about. We're looking at 14,500 metric tons, an unbelievable amount of weight.
And all of it, every single pound, acts as if it's being pulled straight down through that one tiny point. It's center of gravity.
This quote just nails the secret to its survival. The engineer's entire job, for centuries, has been to make sure that an imaginary vertical line, drawn straight down from that center point, never, ever falls outside the footprint of the tower's base. And as long as they can meet that one condition, the tower will stand. It's this constant, delicate balancing act between immense weight and a really simple principle of physics. And that is what makes it a true wonder of engineering.
So the next time you see a skyscraper that seems to be defying the wind, or a dancer holding a perfect pose, or hey, even just feeling your own balance as you walk down the street, think about that invisible point. Where else in our world is this fundamental rule of balance secretly at work all around us?